Hi, and welcome to another episode of Cruising in the Kitchen. Tonight we're going to make brown sugar cookies, and I think this recipe is a little unusual, so I thought I'd like to show you guys something different. It's not the normal creaming butter and eggs and things. This is all done by hand, and we use some different techniques that I think you'll find interesting. So this is the mise en place. This is everything that we have to go for the recipe. It has 14 tablespoons of butter, and we're just going to slowly get 10 of it in here to melt slowly, because we need that brown. So to the rest of that, this is 10.5 ounces of flour. I suggest weighing the flour. It's 10.5 ounces, or roughly 2 cups and 2 tablespoons. But I think if you take 2 cups and 2 tablespoons and weigh it, you might be close to 10.5 ounces, but it's something that you want to understand when you're baking. The flour is important to be exact. Brown sugar is a little bit different because you pack it tightly. So this is a cup and 3/4 of brown sugar. And we have an egg and a yolk, a full tablespoon of vanilla. And here we have the leavening agents, which is half a teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and there's salt in here, half a teaspoon as well. One thing I suggest with the soda and the powder is make sure it's not really much older than 6-12 months in your cupboard, because it starts to lose its potency. So keep your baking soda and baking powder, fairly current within 6 months or so. So, like I said, we're going to melt the butter here, but we're going to do more than just melt it. We're going to actually brown it. It's called, brown butter. You've heard that before. It's just a technique to get the nuttiness flavor out of the butter, which combined with the brown sugar is a very unique cookie. This cookie won't taste like too many cookies you've tasted before. It's crunchy on the outside, and it's nice and chewy on the inside. This is what we're going to roll the cookie dough after we make the cookie ball, and it's a 1/4 teaspoon of brown sugar and a 1/4 teaspoon of white sugar. We're just going to mix it together. And what we do is we take the cookie ball and we roll it in here, and that's where you get the crunch on the outside when it bakes. There's a couple different kinds of cookies you roll in sugar before you bake them. This is one of them. It's a very different cookie than a white sugar cookie. This is going to be very chewy, crunchy on the outside, and a little bit more dense tasting, and it's really good. It's really, really good. And browning the butter is a technique that you need to get used to. The butter's now melted, but it's yellow. And I'm going to let it keep going until I see the solids of the butter turn more brown. And it will happen, when it happens within 10, 15, 30 seconds. So you want to be careful. The heat's on medium, high. And you see me pushing away the foam to look through and see the color. This is pretty much one of the harder techniques of the whole recipe. But once you learn how to brown butter, you use this for different applications, not just for this cookie. So it's a good thing to learn how to brown butter. You just want to watch it. You don't walk away. Just keep doing this. And what it's doing is it's evaporating the water out of the butter. And when enough of the water comes out, we'll get a nice brown color. Still getting golden, but you can see it's slowly changing. It takes about I would say 2 to 5 minutes, depending on the heat. And you want to err on the side of the heat being too low than too high, so you don't burn it. The oven's on 350. Something else you'll notice when we're finished with this is that I don't scoop these cookies. We throw it out on the board, and I'll make 24 cookies out of it, almost like dough, which is a lot different than a lot of other cookie recipes. Okay, I'm going to keep watching this, and we'll come back in another minute or two, and I'll show you when it's brown. Okay, a minute or two has gone by. You can hear the sizzle. It's basically the water evaporating out of the butter. And you just want to keep watching it. You don't want to use you want to use as light colored pan as possible. This is the lightest colored pan I have. It's better than the dark black ones, the regular Calphalon looking pans, because it's harder to see this color. So stainless steel, I think, is actually the easiest, and this is the next best thing, the color pan that I'm using right now. And I can start to smell. It starts to smell nutty. It's just beginning to smell. And you can see there's a lot of bubbles going on. There's a lot of evaporating going on. And it will turn, like I said, once it starts to go, it will turn in 15-30 seconds where you'll lose it. And what we're going to do is we're going to cool it down in this bowl, and the 4 tablespoons of butter there help do that. And it helps cool down this butter. And we're getting there slowly. I can smell it. But it's not there yet. You really want to get some brown color on the bottom here and push away this foam and get a look at the actual color of the butter. And we're getting close. I'll turn it down just a little. But I'm going to keep it on the heat. And I can really smell it now. And I can see the brown through the bubbles, which is actually hard to see. That's why you want as clear of a pan as possible. See the brown? You pour it in this pan and let the other butter help cool it down. And we'll wait till this is cool. We're not going to make cookies with the hot butter. But you can see the brown color. And this brown color will add some nuttiness to the flavor of the cookie and complements the brown sugar a lot. And you can smell it. And you can see the color. Nice caramel. Could get a teeny bit darker, but not much because it would burn quickly. You just want to brown your butter. It changes the flavor of the butter, and it's actually, it's an important part of the recipe. It's something different. And you'll notice it when you eat the cookie later. So we're going to let that cool 10 minutes, and we're going to come back and finish the recipe. It's fairly quick. Okay, it's been about 10-15 minutes, and the butter is more, cooled down that we can work with it. It's room temperature more or less. So that's the cold butter that you pour the hot butter into helps do that. So it only takes about 15 minutes to come down to temperature. And now we just want to mix everything together. So let's put all our dry ingredients together. This was the leavening agents, the salt, the baking soda, baking powder. Just give that a quick mix. You want to evenly distribute that in the flour mixture. And in here we'll start by incorporating the brown sugar first. Another thing about this recipe that I would like to mention is this brown sugar needs to be soft. So if you have that rock hard brown sugar in your cupboard, this isn't the cookie to make that recipe with. You want something fresh. Kind of like the baking soda and the baking powder. You just want to keep everything as fresh as possible. The brown sugar, everybody knows that. Brown sugar gets very hard. So there we go. And now we're just going to incorporate the egg and the vanilla. And you also want dark brown sugar for this recipe as opposed to the light brown sugar. It's that much better. Get it all mixed in. 1 egg, 1 yolk. And then, like everything else, you want to gently fold the cookie in. You don't want to beat any gluten into this. You just want to once again, that was 10.5 ounces of flour, 2 cups and 2 tablespoons. And usually my baking, I'm going to tell you to weigh. Like I said before, I'm going to tell you to weigh the flour. And I think people should get used to that. And I think you'll be happy with the results because just a couple extra tablespoons of flour here and there is enough to change texture and do things to the recipe that you don't want to happen. So we're just going to get all this incorporated. Kind of turns into like a dough. Not your normal. Okay, all the white streaks are gone just about. And we're going to roll this out onto a clean surface. And we're going to divide this into 24 even pieces, more or less. And I'll show you one of the easy ways to do that. You just keep cutting in half. So here's 4. Doesn't have to be exact, but you know, do your best. So now we have 8, and we want 24. So we want 3 pieces from each one of these. And these are going to be our cookie. Each piece gets into 3. And then I'll roll these into balls and throw them into that sugar mixture, and they're done. So this is very different than most cookie recipes. You're not usually cutting cookies like this and portion them this particular way. This is a very forgiving dough. It's almost a dough, whereas cookie batter is more of a batter. So that's another difference of this. I think it's kind of a fun cookie to make because you get to kind of play with your dough a little bit differently. So this is how you do it for the oven. Take one of your squares, lightly make a ball out of it, throw it in the sugar. They'll spread out pretty good on the pan. I'm only going to cook 3 right now, but I am going to roll these all in the sugar and I'm going to freeze them like I always do, so I can have fresh cookies whenever I want. But basically 350, 12 to 14 minutes. Give it a light feel. Throw it in your sugar mixture. This is what gives you the nice crunchy coating on the outside. Boom. There's your cookies. I'm going to continue with the rest of them. Well, I'll throw these in the oven, and when I'm done with that, I'm sure these will be done, and we'll come back and take a look at the cookie. It'll have a nice cracked texture. I'll show you the feel of it. You certainly don't want it all, you know, the feel of it to be hard when it comes out of the oven. It's just slightly soft so that it finishes cooking up on the pan. Like the other cookie I made in this series before, you want to pull these cookies out because they're going to cook before they're 100% done, because they will finish cooking on the cookie sheet. 12 to 14 minutes, 350. I'm going to check them after 10 minutes because every oven is different, and you never put a cookie or anything that you're going to bake in the oven for the time that you think it's going to take. You always set it back 2 to 5 minutes because your oven could be a little extra hot. I could look at this after 10 minutes, it could be done, and if I set it for 12, it would have been overdone. So always a couple minutes before. So 350, 12 to 14 minutes, we'll come back and take a look. Okay, it's been about 13, 14 minutes. I'm going to take the cookies out. They seem to be done. This is what you want. They're hot. See that? They're nice and cracked. And they're firm, but there's still a little softness to them. They'll continue cooking, like I said, off the pan. So they're not rock hard by any means. You want that. You want that little bit of softness. 12, 14 minutes at 350 depending on your oven. You want them to look like this, the nice crackness. This is perfect. This took about 13, 14 minutes in this particular oven, but I set it for 10 and I just kept looking every minute and a half or so to make sure they're done. You don't want to overdo them. So that's brown sugar cookies. And these are the other ones that I will freeze later. I'll put plastic wrap around them and I'll freeze them, and I can cook as many as I want. I take them out of the freezer and cook a bunch at a time, but I don't have to cook them all at once this way. And if you want to cook them all at once, I do recommend using a single tray in the oven and not putting them higher and lower. This is a kind of a more of a fickle type of cookie where you want to cook one tray at a time in the middle, rotate it halfway through, and do it one tray at a time if you're going to load it up. See how big they got? So you could probably fit 3, 6, 9 on a pan. There's 24. So if you can squeeze 12 on the pan, you'll get 2 pans, otherwise use 3. And that's the brown sugar cookie. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and come back for another episode of Cruising in the Kitchen.